This is Brian O'Haron speaking. I attended the second public hearing for the Health and Wellness Center trying to purchase the Winsted Super Saver building and properties, parking lot, from John Dwan, who owns it and wants to retire. John's been paying about $24,000 in tax, profitable tax, because he has no kids in the school system, for about 33 years. Probably grown along the way, but that's what it is now, $1,000 a year. So he wants to sell, retire. He's had a back operation or so. He wants to do other things. He's 2 years old. So I attended the meeting the other night, 10th, Monday night. I didn't expect to speak, although I did speak and try to get my word in for growing the grant list like I always do. Whenever I talk to planning and zoning or the selectmen finance board, never seems to help, but maybe now with Bob Geiger in there going in the right direction, if we can get him some more help, he might do a lot for us. Now, the meeting lasted close to 3 hours. There were other things in there, like another person had put in an application. There was a lot of hemming and hawing, hiccups, coughing, delays between passing the microphone around and things like that. You'll see that during the program. I try to edit most of that out. I probably made a mistake or two along the way. I'll take responsibility for that. I always take responsibility for my own mistakes, unlike a lot of people that are on Planning and Zoning Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals and the Finance Board and the Selectmen. They always try to blame somebody else. You'll hear some of that tonight. Now, there were plenty of people at the meeting who didn't want the sale to occur. They want to see a co-op in there, or perhaps John keep the store open for another 33 years, by which time he'll be 92 instead of 62. And they'd like to see this happen. They don't really want to see the health and wellness people get in there on Main Street, where it'll make it a lot easier for a lot of people in town. I want to tell you up front here that over the years I've been here since 2002, I've had the house since 73 and 4, Joyce and I, but we retired 2002. There have been many attempts by people up at the local hospital on Spencer Street to get out of there. The first one was the Torrington Hospital itself. They wanted to move down to Route 44 and be on a main highway and have one big building that was modern and where the helicopter could land safely and cars could park easily. One floor was their plan at the time. I was on EDC. I went down there and I talked to, most of EDC, by the way, didn't want the hospital to move. So I went down and I talked to Brian Mattiello, who at the time was in charge of that. And I asked him in advance for a list of all the reasons he wanted to get out and move. The Economic Development Commission sent a couple of watchdogs along with me. They were nice people. They came down with me. I did most of the talking. And Brian had in his hand, when we got there, a list of all the reasons they wanted to move. They were getting a grant, I guess, from the state to be able to do so. Maybe the feds were involved too. I can't remember now. This was many years ago. And he had reasons like, we need continuous operation. We don't have it there. We need the helicopter to land at the time. They couldn't do that. They had a whole list of things. I might still have the list around somewhere. I submitted it to the Economic Development Commission. Probably got it in their file somewhere unless they destroyed it. But then they didn't get their grant, so they agreed with Spencer Street people, as far as I know, to make some improvements up there. The helicopter, I think, does land there again now. They were landing over in Gilbert Field for a while, and people had to take the ambulance over to the hospital or private ride or whatever. So that's what happened there. And then along the way, the veterans have been talking a lot about getting out of there as well. I don't know if they ever will, but they want to go down to the center of town. The rumor had it that they wanted to go into the sports center down there off of Main Street. They wanted to go down there. It's for sale. And there was talk that they might buy it, and maybe even a co-op might go in there too. And now the health and wellness people want to do the same thing. So I think it's kind of odd that everybody wants to get down off of Spencer Street. You'll hear a bit about that tonight. They want to get down more towards the center of town. The people who cooked up the POCD, which you'll hear a lot about, and the P&Z regulations, have different ideas. They want the town to be a business center like Great Barrington, but they don't have any money to spend, any of them. They don't want to buy the store from John Dwan for whatever he's asking for it. and open up the shop themselves. Now, I do mention this in the program, might not be on tonight's program, but I did get up and speak, and I suggested that, hey, maybe they want to chip in, or maybe one of the big shots from the lake, or big shots from the town, or Winchester might want to buy it and run it as a grocery store and see how far they get. Of course, nobody's going to volunteer to do that. They want somebody else to do that. So anyway, the meeting lasted so long that I had divided up into 3 parts. I went down with my camera. I took a lot of random photos of people, the crowd, and the people on the commission, and visitors, and things like that. And I scattered them around on this program because this is just a copy of a voice-only recording that I picked up from P&Z on Tuesday, the next morning after the meeting. And I read it into my computer. I edited out all the oohs and ahs and side comments and long delays and stuttering and sneezing and coughing, all that kind of thing. I edited most of that out, but not all of it. So I'll take responsible for that. The pictures are not synchronized with the speakers because that would take me another day to do all that, and I can't even sometimes even remember which one was. But they do say their names, so the names in the pictures don't match. But you can hear in the recording who they are and what they're up to. So anyway, tonight I'm going to show you about 40 minutes of the program. Next week I'll show you the second 40 minutes, and the following week I'll show you the last 40 minutes. That adds up to the 2 hours. I also have put it up on YouTube. If you get a hold of me, I can give you the link, especially if you have an email address. I can email you the link. The whole thing is up on YouTube edited. The whole 2 hours is up there, 2 hours and 2 minutes or so. And if you get the link from somebody, I'm sending it around to as many people as I can. All the leaders in town are getting a copy of that link. And a lot of the people that aren't here in the winter around the world and around the country are getting a copy that I emailed to them so they can keep up with what's going on. Because one time in the past, the mayor said, we want to take the voting privileges away from the lake people. We ought to consider that because they're not here 50% of the time. They can't vote for selectmen. They can't vote for finance board or board of education or town clerk or any of those kind of things. So maybe we ought to take their right away to vote for or against the taxes, as most people would want to do. If they're not here year-round, they still want to vote, and our charter allows that. Not everybody's charter allows that, but that's one of the good things about Winsted. The voters get a chance to speak up. Now, most of them don't know how to speak up. They don't know how to balance the budget. They don't know what has to be done. They don't know which kind of people to elect. That's what I'm trying to do with this program, is say you got to elect people who do know how to balance the budget, how to get more revenue in, how to get more increasing advantageous tax in, and how not to raise taxes when you don't grow the grand list. That's very important for us to do, and I'm trying to help, and I'm going to do all this as much as I can because I want everybody to pitch in November and vote in the right kind of people to help this good town manager we have now, Harvard graduate, ran businesses around various parts of the world, brought a business here from Ohio to New Hartford, Pitney Bowes, did a lot of good things. So listen in carefully. If you're a glutton for punishment, you will want to hear this. You want to hear this if you're a glutton for punishment. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. And you want to hear it quicker, just pick up everything from the town hall. You can get a copy of the voice recording. You can get a copy of some of the papers mentioned during the meeting and submitted by the wellness people and submitted by the P&Z, the planning director in our town. You can get that kind of stuff. I got it. I send it out by email. If you give me your email address, I'll send you a copy of it. I picked it up at the meeting the other night. All kinds of things. So I need you now to listen carefully here so you can hear for yourself what happened at the meeting the other night. And you don't have to just believe what you hear in the newspapers or from friends around town or from your family or from people who don't know what's really happening but think they do. So That's one of the things I want to ask you to do. Listen carefully. I'll be back later.
Okay, by my watch, it looks to be 7 o'clock, and I wish to open the regular meeting of April 10th of the Planning and Zoning Commission for the town of Winchester. Steve, would you call the order, please?
Yep. Mr. Sandin?
Here.
Mr. Clausen?
Here.
Ms. Wilkes?
Here.
Mr. Martinez?
Here.
Mr. Melcher?
Yeah.
Mr. Marchand is absent excused, and Mr. Thompson?
Here. Okay. Under item 3, agenda review, do I have anyone here that has any questions or issues they'd like to bring up that are not on the agenda? No. Not saying. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of March 27th?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous. Okay. I now request we have a motion to reopen the public hearing for PZC 1704 special permit 372-376 Main Street and 30 Elm Street, map 110, block 001, lots 2A, 18A, applicant Community Health and Wellness Center of Greater Torrington, Inc., owner Winsted Super Saver Property, LLC, proposed relocation and expansion.
I make a motion we reopen the public hearing as described.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Steve is going to enter some narrative.
Just the special permit hearing procedure. If you're at the last hearing, it'll be the same exact spiel, but for those that didn't come to the last one. First, we will have a presentation from the applicant to explain their project. During this part of the hearing, we ask that the general public remain quiet. The commission may ask questions during or after this presentation. Second, we will open the hearing to the public. Everyone who wishes to speak may do so. Please state your name and address for our record. We ask that you keep your comments to under 3 minutes for the first go-around. After the first turn, you may speak longer. Please remain focused on the application and how it does or does not meet the requirements set forth in our regulations. In the interest of time, if another person has covered a particular topic, you do not need to repeat it. You can just indicate that you agree with the particular topic or statement. This hearing will probably conclude tonight, but it could possibly be extended. We also ask that questions or comments to the applicant be directed to the chair and not directly to the applicant, and only one person should talk at a time. And of course, we don't allow any outbursts, clapping, or jeering. This keeps the recording of the meeting clear. Otherwise, it's very hard to follow. Any written correspondence, pictures, or other materials used in the presentation which are shown to the commission must be left with the secretary to become part of the record for this application. Please understand they have to make their decision based on the record of this hearing and the requirements found in our regulations. We cannot take into consideration factors not covered in the regulations or any item that may be discriminatory or otherwise improper. Additionally, we cannot look at the tax or other fiscal impacts to the town in deciding an application. Depending on need, this hearing may or may not be continued beyond tonight. Commission deliberation and voting will not happen until this hearing is closed, and it may take some time depending on how much review is needed. It could happen tonight or may happen at the next meeting. We will welcome your input once we have the hearing open for public comment. Please be patient. The process is meant to be fair to all parties involved, including the applicant, the commission, and the public. Thank you for your participation and caring for our community.
Steve,
Pardon?
I have something to say before we start. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. This letter that we received, I don't believe we should have received. This should be part of the record we should have received it this evening, not last week. I believe this is communications to us, which should be part of the record of the board.
That is, that's in the record. It was given to you ahead of time so that you could read it. It's certainly part of the record. It's available for anybody to review. It's not any different than getting a staff report from me or from,
Well, this is from the applicant, and it's different than a staff report.
but it's okay for you to get things ahead of time. You got the application ahead of time, you got the plans ahead of time. You could have gotten, probably did get a written statement before the hearing started as part of the application. It's very normal. I mean, you can't be expected to read a 4-page letter at a hearing and understand it before the hearing. So it's perfectly normal to receive
I think
engineering plans, reports, anything in between hearings. That's fine. It's part of the record. It's open to the public. There's no secret you got it. It's fine.
Okay.
We will be covering all of it with the commission tonight in public session. So you will have. Good evening once again, Mr. Chair and commission members. Is this picking me up okay before I
That's fine.
Attorney Joe Williams, List Shipment and Goodwin in Hartford. It's good to see you all again.
Can everybody hear okay? Just hold the mic. Sure. Just grab it and hold it. Not like that sensitive.
Good to see everyone again. Is that better? What we wanted to do is just address further and provide further information to the commission with respect to comments that you heard at the last public hearing. I thought that might be helpful to you. We did present the application fully at the first public hearing. You heard a number of comments. We've tried to provide some information into the record that you received ahead of time in the letter that you have from Joanne Bourdois. She's going to go over that right after me in a couple of minutes, so that will all be reviewed, and she'll probably expand and provide some additional information, and the public can hear all of that. I would submit most of the comments that you heard opposing our application were focused on impacts, potential impacts to the economy of Main Street and downtown Winsted, and we're glad to talk about that. But much of what you heard was repeating the same unsupported speculation about how a nonprofit will be bad for the economy of downtown Winsted. Now, under the law of the state of Connecticut, your decision must be supported, of course, by facts in the record. It has to be, as Steve said a moment ago, it has to be based on the facts in the record, and it may not be based on speculation. So let's try to separate the two. That's my job here with you tonight. Some of the speculation that I would submit you heard at the last public hearing were things like, what if healthcare becomes frittered throughout the community and the Spencer Street facility is impacted? What might happen if this site is no longer used for a retail business? Will it be difficult for the local economy to recover from some unspecified impacts that were referenced? Let's go over the facts. First, there are many spaces available, as I'm sure everybody here knows. There are many spaces available on Main Street for retail use, and that will, of course, continue to be the case if you grant this application. Ms. Bourdois is going to tell you about some of those that we researched recently, just to list a number of those locations. Next, Mr. Dewan has decided. Oh, yeah, thank you. Mr. Dewan has decided to retire and to close his grocery store. You're not doing that. We're not doing that. That's his decision. That's what he wants to do. Mr. Dewan and his, as we heard last time, Mr. Dewan and his realtor tried unsuccessfully to find another grocery operator to take over that location once he retires. He couldn't find one, and as he explained, the market doesn't support that size of a grocery store anymore. Therefore, from the testimony that you've heard, you can conclude that if you don't grant this application, that building will become dark and vacant. Maybe it will become a dollar store, or you have the opportunity for it to become the Community Health and Wellness Center by granting this application. We showed you that there is a substantial community need for the Community Health and Wellness Center services and a demand for it. That the center does not presently have the capacity in its existing location to meet that need. The center has outgrown its existing location. It needs more space, and it cannot feasibly renovate that building and stay there. They tried to be able to stay there. That was their first preference. Of course, nobody likes to move, but they couldn't make it physically, and that location is also problematic for some of its patients to access. So instead, the center has found a much better location on Main Street. It's more centrally located. It's more accessible. It has ample parking right next to the building. The additional facts that you've heard. The center will invest $1 million downtown to renovate Mr. Dewan's building. The entire $1 million grant, you should know, the entire grant, all $1 million, will be spent on contractors, design professionals, furniture and equipment vendors, etc. The Health and Wellness Center will separately be paying Mr. Dewan to buy the building, not using any of those grant funds. So the $1 million will be used all on renovating and improving that building. That's how badly they need to move, and they value this location. They're willing to put that extra money into buying the site and using a $1 million grant for renovation. So when done, the building will be a vibrant, brand new, professionally run doctor's office on Main Street. And in addition, the center will be adding jobs to its payroll if it gets to expand to the Main Street location. It expects to have 12 or 13 people on staff, whereas they have 3 now. Some of those people are specialized medical professionals with disposable income to spend downtown, and those people pay taxes. The center will be spending money in Winsted all the time to operate and maintain its offices and to run its business. It will be contributing to the economy of Main Street and of downtown Winsted every week out of the year. And you can be sure that none of the employees paid by the center who will patronize businesses on Main Street, none of the local small businesses who will be paid by the center to provide goods and services, and none of the potential customers drawn to Main Street to visit their doctor will notice or care that it's a nonprofit. So those are some of the collateral economic benefits of the center moving downtown. Also, I wanted to just note, make sure it's clear, as I think we brought up last time, that there will still be, even if you grant the application and the center moves into about 7,000 plus square feet, as shown on the architectural floor plans, there will still be about 2,500 square feet of storefront space right on Main Street that will be available for potentially some other use, maybe a retail use, maybe a co-op food store. The center has expressed and wants to express again as clearly as we can its openness to that potential use and the center's willingness to partner with a committee or the town or whomever it may be to try to bring an appropriate use there to the frontage of the property on Main Street. And so you have a staff report from Mr. Sadlowski. He suggests a compromise in there of reserving that additional 2,500 square feet of space, potentially for a retail use, and the center is open to that. So we've talked about the economic benefits, the retail space potentially remaining available on Main Street, but please don't overlook the direct and very real benefits of having the center expand its capacity and move to a more accessible location. First, you will simply have healthier and happier residents, which is a good all by itself. You will also have residents who will have more money available, less of their time wasted, and who don't need to worry as much about their health care. And don't they make better customers for the businesses of Winsted? This will result in less dependence on the emergency room and less cost of that coming back to all of us in the form of taxes and insurance premiums. And doesn't that allow all of us to be better customers? I have a study I want to hand out to you, and it has an interesting phrase in there about creating tax-paying individuals. Let me just hand that if I could, and then I'll tell you what I'm talking about. Thank you. Just hand it out. What I've provided you is a 2010 study by the Connecticut Association of Nonprofits. It's called The Economic Health and Impact of Nonprofits in Connecticut. First few pages talk about the impacts on the nonprofits. I just wanted to direct your attention to page 4 of that document. You can see the page number in the lower left corner there. Page 4 talks about how nonprofits are vital to Connecticut's economic recovery. And this is from 2010, but the points still remain and are as valid today as they were a few years ago. Just a few of the points, you can read that, but I'll summarize some of the things in there that we believe are relevant. One of the statements about nonprofits is we are employers, both small and large, employing 11% of the state's workforce and generating over $8.7 billion in wages in 2008. Nonprofits employing taxpaying individuals. They employ taxpaying individuals and consume goods and services just like any other business in Connecticut. And although some of them don't pay income tax or property tax, we do pay payroll taxes as employers, as well as other unrelated business taxes. Nonprofits are a major part of our state's economy. Foremost, nonprofits are critical partners with the state in the provision of health and human services. We help the state meet its mission to serve and protect the most vulnerable among us. Nonprofits provide quality, efficient, cost-effective services to residents at a great savings to taxpayers. And the last thing at the bottom of that page I wanted to point out, nonprofits also play a fundamental role in creating tax-paying individuals. We assist Connecticut's neediest residents achieve self-sufficiency so that they can move away from using government-funded services and towards becoming contributing tax-paying members of our communities. So these types of, well, I'm done with that report for the moment, but I commend that to your attention. These types of community facilities are widely recognized as being vital contributors to the well-being of the community. The proposed use, the use that we're proposing to you, will not in any way harm the economy of downtown Winsted. Rather, it will add to it. And that's what your plan of conservation and development here in Winchester recognizes. We have a number of, I'll just refer you to them. I'm not going to read them all to you because I'm sure you know them, but a number of statements on pages 8-2, 8-3, and 8-4 about the importance of non-municipal community facilities in Winchester, many of which are located downtown. There's one specific statement at the bottom of page 8-3 that says, in view of the turmoil in the healthcare industry, where despite the rhetoric, concern for the patient is so easily dismissed, we have a duty to maintain a community capacity to provide comprehensive, competent, accessible, and compassionate healthcare to the people. Now that's a great statement. It was being used to garner support from Winsted Health Center, but that statement is broadly applicable and just as applicable here, because that's the kind of additional capacity that the Community Health and Wellness Center would like to provide. And finally, on page 8-4, you have a statement of a goal to support non-municipal community facilities in Winchester, and it says, the many non-municipal facilities provide invaluable benefits to residents. The town should encourage their continued presence and operation in the community. You will encourage their continued presence and operation by granting this application. And the last thing I wanted to say is because of the timelines we have under our contract, we would greatly appreciate it if the commission is comfortable and if you close the hearing, you're voting on the application this evening. So with that, unless there are questions for me, I'll ask Ms. Ward-Law to come up and go over her letter for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your time and attention this evening, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. I do want to say that the letter that was referenced is exactly the letter that I will be going through with you all tonight, so that this information is the same as what was previously given to the Commission. It is clear from the comments at the public hearing on March 27th regarding the proposal for Community Health and Wellness Center, which I will also refer to as CHWC, to relocate to Main Street, that an increased awareness and education of who we are and what we do is needed. Community Health and Wellness has been a part of the Winsted community since 2012, providing much-needed healthcare services to a population in great need. However, it was very surprising to us to hear that some people didn't know we even existed for these last 4 to 5 years here in Winsted. A large reason for that is the current location that we are in. I would urge the Commission, when making a decision on this application, to consider the words contained within the regulations of the Winsted Planning and Zoning that states that they exist to promote, protect the public, their health, their safety, and the welfare of the citizens of Winchester. Prioritizing the health of the population ensures attaining high quality, longer lives free of preventable disease, disability, injury, and premature death. These are the residents of this town who are frequenting your Main Street and their businesses. And in order for them to do that well, they need to remain healthy residents of this community. While I understand that access to a grocery store in town is important and that John has provided many years of service to this community, it is time for John to retire. And to reiterate what our attorney said, it is his choice to do so. We didn't ask John to retire. The people in this room didn't ask John to retire, but John would like to retire. The following sections, I hope, will address some of the issues and concerns that were raised at the last public hearing and some commentary in the papers recently to be able to clarify, again, what our organization does. And I hope that this next section provides that clarity for you. So what does Community Health and Wellness Center do? Community Health and Wellness Center is a federally qualified health center, otherwise known as an FQHC. As an FQHC, it is a reimbursement designation that we are given from the Bureau of Primary Health Care and the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services of the United States Department of Health and Human Services. FQHCs are community-based organizations that provide comprehensive primary care and preventative care, including oral and mental health services to persons of all ages, regardless of their ability to pay and regardless of their health insurance status. We are considered to be the service delivery model of choice for excellent quality care, and because of the imminent and continued changes to the healthcare industry, FQHCs like Community Health and Wellness Center will be the system of the future for the delivery of healthcare services. Quite contrary to what we heard at the last hearing, where if funding goes away, our services will go away. There is a large investment being made in centers like ours to continue to provide services to communities as a health net and safety net provider. If we don't exist, patients who can't afford care and cannot be seen anywhere else will be in trouble, and we need to ensure that that doesn't happen. What services do we offer? CHWC is not atypical what has been referred to as a medical office. CHWC offers comprehensive services under one roof. Those services include primary medical care, dental, and behavioral health services. We also offer on-site case management, which is a resource that is very difficult to find in a regular doctor's office, most of the time because they cannot employ the staff necessary to perform those duties. Our case managers do community outreach. They ensure that gaps in care are closed for individuals who cannot afford to navigate the healthcare system themselves. They ensure that those individuals have the resources and linkages to care that we cannot provide within the center ourselves. And they ensure that the continuity of care that residents of this community need are being served. CHWC has a collaborative relationship with the McCall Center for Behavioral Health, where referrals for substance abuse would be made so that patients can take part in outpatient treatments. That is because I was asked at the last hearing, are we a methadone clinic? Are we a free clinic? The answer to that is no, we are not. There are extensive programs that CHWC cannot provide, such as substance abuse, where we establish community relationships to refer patients to those agencies so that they can get the help that they need. We partner with Charlotte Hungerford Hospital to provide behavioral health services for one-on-one treatment and counseling, and we refer patients to their outpatient intensive programs. We would like to be able to participate in school-based services in the community of Winsted, which would help children in this community who need it for both primary care and behavioral health. And school-based centers have proven to decrease absentee rates, keeping children in school to learn. Those become your healthy citizens of the future. Some examples through grants that we receive. Every grant that we receive is given back to the community. When we apply for a grant, it's to apply for funding to assist us with programs and services that will support community functions. Some examples of grants we've received. We hired a nurse navigator who, through a grant, works collaboratively with many community agencies such as the hospital, such as the Visiting Nurses Services, and many other agencies to close gaps in care and to ensure patients receive their appointments in continuity without lack of care. Through that same grant, we were able to expand our dental services, where our waiting lists were once long. They are now less than a week or two long. We were able to hire another dentist to ensure that those grant dollars were used to improve and increase access to the community. We received funding last year from the Northwest Community Foundation. That grant money was used to develop an 8-week program that allowed for women and young women and girls to take part in 8-week sessions of economic self-sufficiency training, where they were able to be taught to interview for jobs, and those women are now contributing members of the economy. Why don't we use, one of the other questions was, why don't we use the grant dollars to renovate the space that we are in? So I guess this becomes the big question. To reiterate again what our attorney has told you, we attempted to use the grant dollars to renovate the space in Spencer Street. To give that a little bit of history, this grant was applied for by my predecessor, who wrote the grant. After looking at other options, could not find any. The grant was written to renovate the space on Spencer Street, but once we did our due diligence, we found that it was not possible to work within the scope of the grant that would provide the outcome needed per the regulations of the grant. That scope was to somehow be able to reconfigure the space to include 6 primary care rooms from the 2 that we currently have, to include 2 behavioral health offices from the 1 that we currently have, and to also include 3 dental operatories from the 1 that currently existed. In addition to that, there was also need for much support space, group therapy rooms, and conference rooms as well. We had an engineer come through the building, and what the engineer found was that load-bearing walls prevented us from performing the work that the grant required. In order for those load-bearing walls to come down, it would require costly steel beams to be put in place, supporting the second floor with weight-bearing concerns, down to the basement and probably into the sublevel of the soil in order to ensure that the structure was sound. We're talking about doing this in a 1902 building. It is also very likely that as you start to do things of that nature, that you encounter other issues besides the load-bearing issues that you were told exist. In addition, there were mechanical issues that needed to be addressed. There are 2 buildings on Spencer Street, and in the 1902 building where we currently operate, all of the mechanics came over to that side of the building, which would mean that we would have to figure out a way to separate mechanics between our building and the building adjacent to us. For those reasons, we also looked at options on the other building adjacent to us on Spencer Street, on the second floor of what once used to be the inpatient ward. The configuration of that unit was also not able to achieve for us the results of the specifications of the grant. The corridors were long and narrow, and it would require much construction of knocking down walls to be able to accommodate the workflow that we need to operate our business. So while we attempted to do everything we could to be able to do this grant on the Spencer Street location, that location simply does not work for us. It does not work for our patients, it does not work for efficient workflow, and it doesn't work for the center. It left us looking at alternatives for relocation. After looking at properties, John's building was what we considered to be an ideal location, not only for our operations, but for access to patients and to be able to increase our capacity to allow us to penetrate a low-income population who we are only seeing a fraction of because of our current ability. Why don't we, sorry, okay. The relocation of the new proposed site is not fully funded by the grant, as was mentioned. The grant only covers the interior renovation and costs associated with the construction. Community Health and Wellness is committed to providing the much-needed healthcare services to the community and is therefore investing money, which is not funded by state or federal grants, into the purchase of the property and taking on debt and risk to do so, because we firmly believe we need to be there. We are also investing $1 million into the building's infrastructure and adding value to property. It was mentioned in the most recent article in the paper that if we had the money to purchase the building, we should be able to spend the money needed on Spencer Street. As I have just outlined for you, those dollars would have gone far beyond the cost of what it will cost us to expand our services on Main Street. Lastly, I urge you to consider that the town of Winsted does have other nonprofit entities that exist, and you just heard the contributions that we can make to this community as a nonprofit, given the services that we provide. Healthy people make healthy communities. Healthy communities and their residents are what supports your businesses in the downtown area. I fully understand your need and desire, and I hope that it does come to fruition to turn Winsted back into a quintessential town. I do hope that that happens for Winsted. But what we also know is that it will take quite some time for that to happen. In the meantime, the impact is to John, who's been giving to this community for 35 years, and to the residents of this community who cannot access our services. And if we don't relocate, that will continue, and that will mean not a healthy community, not healthy residents that will be able to frequent your businesses and support what you want to do in the town of Winsted. In closing, Mr. Sandin and respected members of the board, I urge this commission to make a decision based on the fact that we comply with the zoning regulations as per the special permit requirements, and that we are here to partner with the community and to make a positive difference in the lives of the people in Winsted. We couldn't be prouder to be proposing relocation to a place where we will continue the legacy of giving back to the community. John Dwan is deserving of his retirement and should not be impacted by his right to move on to the next chapter in his life. We do hope that the town of Winsted is able to achieve your vision, and I would love to be a partner in that venture. As our attorney mentioned, we will have space available that I am open to discussions with the town and their leadership to use that space to do what you feel the appropriate thing to do with that space is. Whether it be a smaller store, whether it be a bakery, whether it be a coffee shop, or whatever you feel is ideal for the space, I am open to those discussions. We also know that there are, as mentioned, many vacant buildings on Main Street. Buildings that I myself have seen occupied and unoccupied in a short amount of time. At last count, and as I pulled up prior to this meeting, there are 10 Main Street business fronts that are empty and dark. One of those I can tell you personally that we had been talking to prior to our looking at other property 2 years ago to be able to relocate to Main Street. So it will happen someday, but I think that what we need to think about is what we do today and now for the health and welfare of this community and how that will contribute to your vision. Thank you.
That's our presentation, Mr. Chairman.
Now we'll open to the public. Pardon? Do you have any questions, sir? Anyone? You want to wait till the end? Okay.
I have a question.
Pardon?
I just had a couple of questions from the attorney. You talked about the adding. I'm sorry. You're talking about adding employees. What's the total employee count for your?
That will be added. So we have 3. We'll probably be up to about 13.
What was your employee load, Jim?
Full time?
Yeah.
Right now there are 4 of us that are full time.
I know, I've heard if no one here, I think, questions the service being provided already, at all. And you spent a lot of time going through what you're offering, and I understand nobody's questioning, and I think we're questioning, do those services have to be a walk-in clinic right in the center of the retail district in town. And I'm not sure that, I don't want to make it emotional because of you, John, or because of the services you provide. The second question was, what percentage of the town are you planning on servicing? Because the board has responsibility to the entire town going forward, to make sure the downtown is, for already healthy people, already young people. So your service people you service are low income.
So let me clarify that a little bit. Again, I'm hearing we're a walk-in clinic. We are not a walk-in clinic. We are an integrated specialty practice that employs highly qualified, skilled professionals.
Right.
So we see patients by appointment, number one. Number two, to answer your question about what type of population, the population of Winsted right now here in town makes up, the low-income population makes up about 59% of your population. That's a staggering number. So yes, we are the safety net providers for those low-income population whose definition is the federal poverty level at or below 100 to 200%. Most likely, those patients are insured by Medicaid. Most likely, some of them are uninsured and considered self-pay. However, at the center, we see patients with Medicaid, Medicare, self-pay, Blue Cross, Blue Shield, any other third-party commercial. We don't turn anyone away. So we do have a mix of people. I would say that 60% or so are the Medicaid population. The remainder are a little bit of self-pay, probably about 10%, and about 15% are third-party or commercially insured patients.
How does that help? Yes, in a way, but how does it help the downtown?
Well, I think that kind of is...
I hate to use throughput or something, but to me, healthy retail, healthy town, healthy retail is boots on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
people coming downtown, using the businesses on both sides, not just going in for an appointment and
Right.
leaving.
I
So I
understand.
hate to use throughput, but what do you expect daily? And you're open, 40 hours a week?
So we are open Monday through Friday. The latest we would be open is till approximately 6 p.m., though that is subjected to change once we expand our capacity. Our latest hours right now in Torrington are till 8 p.m. We were opened on Saturdays. Again, that's a possibility that we could consider for Winsted, depending on the need and the demand. I think that the ideal scenario right now, and where our patients who are, again, your residents who come to frequent your business beyond coming to their doctor's offices, it is more likely that we will contribute to them going to the restaurants and frequenting whatever retail you do have available if we are located on Main Street once they come out of that doctor's appointment versus if we're located on Spencer Street, because it is likely that from Spencer Street they're going to go home. If we're downtown, it is likely that they may go grab some lunch, or they may go down the street and go antique shopping, or they may take a stop into the health food store on Main Street. Our location there would be much more conducive to contributing to that versus where we are on Spencer Street, where it is likely that they're either taking the bus and going home, or getting in their cars, or walking back to their house.
Well, that's why I asked about how many come through there, because it
Oh, so-
definitely wouldn't be as many people as are going through retail and shopping.
Well, we
there.
see on an annual basis, we see 2,000 patients right now because of our limited capacity come through our door. That amounts to about 4,000 visits. So each of those patients comes perhaps once every 3 months, perhaps once every 6 months, perhaps once a year, depending on their condition. If we were to expand our capacity, our base would increase to 4,200 patients, which would likely mean visits of approximately 6,000 to 7,000 a year. So unfortunately, we can't get to more than what we see today because of our limited capacity.
That's I don't know what that comes out daily though. How many people run through your
Per day? So I would say that each provider sees between 15 to 18 patients a day. Right now, we only have the ability for one provider on Spencer Street. When we get to the Main Street location, if this application is approved, we would end up with at least 4 providers, so 18 per provider times 4, about 72 patients, thank you, a day that would be coming in and out. Now, many of those also come with family. They come with children, or they come with caregivers, or they come with a loved one. And that, of course, is not included in our visit unless they're actually seeing the doctor. But that would be a fair number to be able to provide to you compared to what we're seeing today on Spencer Street.
Not trying to be contrary, I think if there were somebody comes with me, we generally won't make a day that go and shop in there because you're
I think the other thing also is, given our location, we would be able to expand services not only within the center itself, but out into the community where we can work with, for example, the college students. We can work for the schools in the town of Winchester. We can offer those services after school for the elementary schools, and we can go into the college and start to work with that whole population of patients right now, or potential patients that we don't currently get to see because of our limited capacity. And our center is not just a medical center. Again, we offer comprehensive services, but we are very open, and I think you will hear a little bit more about that tonight, but we are very open to partnering to becoming a community center with the town of Winsted. We currently in Torrington offer community happenings. We are very willing to open that door up to the town of Winchester so that we can become a partner with you in hoping to contribute to what you would like downtown Winsted to be. Yes.
Yeah, you said you would have 4 providers seeing approximately 18 people a day. And
Each
at 8 hours a day for those people. They're seeing people for 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. So an average sick visit, the way we schedule patients, is each of those providers would see a patient for 15 minutes. If, for example, you are a new patient coming into the center, we allow between 30 and 35 minutes to see that patient. So it really depends on appointment type, how we are scheduling to the providers. But a typical visit and follow-up visit is 15 minutes per provider.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
I'm fine. The table comfortable at the moment?
Yeah.
Well, you've heard for yourself the first 40 plus or minus minutes of the second public hearing of the Health and Wellness Center to move from their present offices on Spencer Street, which they've been in for 10 years or so, maybe more, maybe less, down to the center of town where they feel they can service the people in need better, because a lot of the people in need, as you probably heard, are not being serviced well, and they need to be. And for a lot of reasons, they feel that they're not now, so they want to move downtown. They have looked at other buildings around town, and for one reason or another, that didn't come to fruition. So when they met with John, he was amiable, but you have to have a special permit from planning and zoning, according to the P&Z regulations, which are derived partly from the plan of conservation and development that's been cooked up by a certain amount of people in town, that most of whom probably don't even know how to run a business successfully. Some of them have run businesses perhaps not as successful as others. But anyway, they have to follow that, so they came in for their meetings, and you just heard part of the second one. The first one was held over, so more people in town would get a chance to speak up, voice their opinion in the public hearing. Personally, as I might have mentioned earlier, I think their mind was made up anyway. And it was kind of a waste of 3 hours to go down there. There were other things that happened during the meeting. another lady went in from her with an application, some problems with her house, and her neighbors spoke as well. I didn't put that in here. And there was a lot of noise. The microphone was being passed around, as you heard. I got most of it out by editing it, and that takes a lot of time and a lot of hours. And a lot of skill that I learned from the people down at Charter Communications who helped me learn how to edit these programs, produce, direct, and edit them. And I learn a new trick from them every week or two. They're very, very helpful people. Now, I'm going to play this one on this week's programs. Next week's programs, I'll play part 2. And then the following week, I'll play part 3. Now, just so you know, the application, after the meeting was held, towards the end of the meeting, was refused 3-2. 3 people voted against letting health and wellness move into the building with many conditions attached. 2 people voted in favor, and they lost. So now they either have to sue the town or move on and find another place to move their health and wellness center to. They do need parking, and they need people to be able to walk in, not have to either ride up the hill or ride their bike or walk or whatever. Some people aren't capable of doing that when they need the help. Nobody ever speaks bad of the Health and Wellness Center. Everybody speaks well of it. A lot of people have used it, and it's helped them a lot. I know a lot of people go there every day, every week, especially after they have operations and they have to have their exercise while their heart's being monitored, things like that. So you can't say any really bad about that. They want to expand their practice. So they're going to keep looking. They're going to try to find somewhere, or they're going to try to appeal the decision of the Planning and Zoning Committee, and they may win and they may lose. But anyway, listen in again next week, or ask me for the email address, or go down to Town Hall and get all the information you want. Now, there's only probably 4 or 5 people who will do that, because most people get on with their lives. Probably would rather leave town than go downtown and ask for anything in the Town Hall, or send me an email asking for the link. But that's how it is in Winsted, and that's how it'll always be in most towns in the Rust Belt area. No people are flooding into this town, and I don't agree with some of the things they said during the meeting about how well everything is going. I'm a bottom line guy. As I see the grand list grow, then I'll tell you, this year it grew a little bit, and we try to hold our taxes within that. The town manager did, and should that all take place, then we'll be in pretty good shape to try again next year. When